Welcome back everyone to another episode of All About Mechanics. Today is Red Petal Bastion. Of course we're going to show the hard mode and the secrets and all that good stuff, but we are using the same structure as we usually do. We are using one stamina DPS, one magic DPS, one tank and one healer so that no roles are left out. How you build is up to you, but the basic roles are there. Now the first pull is quite simple and so is the one following as well. Basic adds, pull them in, turn them away from the group as the tank, and everyone should stay behind the enemy. Quite simple. You've seen this before in multiple mechanic videos, it's no different. But as you go further into the dungeon, you start introducing yourselves to some different enemies. You will see that this big dude on the right here has a lot more health than the rest of them, some nasty ground-based AoEs, and this does need to be focused by the group. The tank should taunt it as soon as possible, but just bear in mind, of course, you can't actually pull that enemy. He does have channeled effects that you need to interrupt, and this is very relevant for later. Zos has a habit of introducing breadcrumb mechanics quite early on to teach you about what you're going to see later on. That is a big hint there. You are going to see them later. You will need to interrupt them. Essentially, though, try and stack everything up as much as you possibly can. If you can stack the enemies on the big guy, then of course that helps. But if not, again, just make sure you've got some form of control as a tank while the group tries to get rid of these guys. Again, don't forget the interrupt. And of course, as the tank, you must block that big heavy attack, because otherwise you're going to get stunned. As a DPS, I wouldn't recommend blocking it. I would just tell you to dodge roll and get out of the way of it. Try not to run around like a headless chicken though, because if you do, the tank's going to have some trouble. Now the first secret is very early on. We're now about to approach it actually. Now there are 3 different platforms you need to stand on, and all you have to do is basically all stand on them together, and eventually the portal will appear. Now there's one up here which I'm going to go and press, but if you look at the map right here, you'll see that there are a few more, and these are where you need to stand in order to activate them. Now of course, once you've done that, you will see here that the light is lit up, and also that is a tell, by the way. If you're looking for the portals, look for that little light. That's where you find them. And in the middle of the area, there is a portal for us to go through. Every single secret will look like this. There will be some platforms to stand on all together, and then the portal will open. Now, when you go in, there are going to be 3 unique bosses. This is the first one. Now, you will start off, obviously, activating the pinion in the middle of the room, and you will get some minor adds. You'll have a decent-sized ad pool, I guess. They're not that difficult to deal with, especially if you're attuned to most mechanics anyway. But, of course, as per usual, the tank does need to maintain taunts on these guys. Otherwise, the DPS and the healers might find themselves in a bit of trouble. Try to stand behind them as the DPS and the healers, and, of course, the tank turn them away. They don't have too much damage together, there's only a few of them, but again, they do have some nasty ground-based AoEs, so you don't really want to stand in those. The crow-type effects that they throw across the floor can overwhelm the group if they are not controlled. So again, just bear that in mind. From a tank's perspective, you need to control these. If they start running loose, people are going to end up dead because they're going to get out of the heals. Now, once these are all gone, again, there's no DPS check for this. You can just kill them in your own time. There's no rush, but of course, if you kill them quicker, you don't have to deal with them so long, sure. Once they're dead, you will be presented with a boss, as you can see here. Big Wraith of Crows. You've seen these before if you've done Overland stuff, or you've done Clockwork City, or maybe you've just seen it from Castle Thorn. Very similar mechanics with a big wind with loads of crows in there you've got to avoid. Just kite that around the room if it's on you so you don't put it through the group. And he does have some jumpy mechanics that you have to obviously chase him around a little bit with. Now, he's not too tough. You can just kind of hold him still and slap into him, but you do have to watch those AoEs. Those that land on the ground there, you will get 1 each, and they will drop underneath each member of the group. All you need to do is step out of it. It doesn't get placed as such, but you can completely avoid it. So again, this is technically watch your feet. Mind the small AoEs, and if you do have the wind on you, obviously kite it away. Quite straightforward. He didn't jump for us then, but he does sometimes jump around the room. Now for defeating him, you get your first buff. This is actually very helpful. This will increase your max stamina and magicka by 10%. Which, for you healers out there, is actually very beneficial. For the DPS, sure, it adds to your resource pools and helps with your damage. But for healers especially, if you're using proc sets that have heals, they do scale off of stamina and magicka, your highest one of the 2. So if you're using something like Heaties or maybe Winter's Respite in this dungeon, you just got buffed. Not to mention, of course, if you do heal an ally, you'll actually get a helping ad that will help do damage to the targets as well. Actually up to 3 each, so it's really fun. Honestly, there's no major difference to the hard mode versus the regular one, except for he's got a lot more health and he hits a bit harder. The fight is technically the same. The only difference is, of course, endurance. You'll have to take a bit longer to go through the fight. So there's no reason not to try it. I mean, it's not that bad, but If you're not comfortable, you don't have to do the hard mode. You can just fight him normally. He'll have about 3 million or so health instead of what he's got now, which is a lot. Hold him still in the middle of the room as the tank, and of course, when he drops that big AoE there, you want to step out of it. It will burst with AoEs coming from the middle as well, so just watch your feet, and also watch the lightning winds that come out from in front of him. He does have a heavy attack when he spins his staff that the tank needs to block, and that's pretty much it for him. Yes, you've got some poison stuff around the room that you have to get out of. Again, it's quite straightforward, just don't stand in it. There are overlapping mechanics there, so if you both have, or multiple of you have the AoEs on your head and you all stand together, you're obviously going to kill each other. You spread out, problem solved. This is the basics. Big circle in the middle, spread out AoEs, mind your feet, look out for the heavy attack. When the poison lands, get out of the way of your group, and mind the winds. Rinse, repeat. During this time, however, you can see that one of our group members just got turned into a goat, which is hilarious. They turn into a goat randomly, and they can run around the room picking up sweet rolls. You'll see myself do it in a moment, but basically while they're doing that, they've got some buffs for the group. Every sweet roll they pick up will actually help heal them and the group, and they also get buffs as well to extra damage and extra healing. And also, if you charge at the portal as a goat, you will actually do a lot more damage to it as a group, and it can go down much, much quicker. Anyway, you run around picking these buffs up, and it also gives ultimate to the group too, by the way. And then you just carry on as normal. Each player will get turned into a goat randomly. Make sure you got a taunt on the boss and you're not the last one alive if you're the tank, because if so, you will get turned into a goat as well. Essentially here, the basic mechanics for the boss are the same, but as of course you saw, we did get a portal in the room and we did get ads through it. There will be multiple ads in the room. You'll have frogs, you'll have Daedra, spiders, and you'll have the big atronachs as well, and sometimes watchers will come in. They all follow their basic mechanics of what you've seen before in the game. So the atronachs have a heavy attack, the spiders can slow you down and do nasty AoE attacks, and the watchers can charge across the room and do lightning beams. The trick to this, to make the fight easier for you, is to just maintain your composure and don't panic. Keep on the boss as and when you can, kill the frogs when they spawn, collect the sweet rolls as the goat, and if you see a portal, get rid of it. If you don't get rid of the portal, it will have ads coming through, and the longer it's there, the more ads will come in, and eventually there'll be more than one portal. If you want to make things simple, focus the major mechanics first. So you can go ham on the boss if you're experienced enough, but it's very, very risky. It does look very, very dramatic, but it can be as chaotic as you want it to be. If you want it to be nice and calm, get rid of the portals and the ads as soon as possible, and it's just you and the boss. If you want it to be really manic and panicky, then of course you can kind of go a little bit mental on the boss and ignore some of the ads, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. You are going to end up stacking way too many mechanics, and it is going to be a bit of a struggle. But if you're one of those groups that want to do that, then it's absolutely fine. It's entirely up to you. But, again, we've got the goat. As you can see, I'm constantly healing people. We've got some orbs around our head. If you haven't noticed those, we've all got like orange orbs around us. I mentioned earlier about the buff that you get from the first secret. Although we've got max stats and increased heals and all the rest of it, if you heal different individual allies, you get one orb for each one that you do so, as long as they're not 100% health. So if I was to pop a Vigor right now and heal all the people in the group, I'd have 3 reddish orangey orbs around me helping me do some damage. So even if you are low DPS, if you get rid of that secret nice and early, you've actually got some help. So it makes these a lot easier to do. Again, you don't have to do hard mode, you can do the regular, and yes, of course, it helps you there as well. Now, as you can see, obviously, we're still doing exactly the same as we did at the beginning of the fight. Big circle in the middle of the room with some small AoEs, several poison shots, and a couple of frogs here and there that we have to get rid of. The rest of the time, someone's going to turn into a goat, pick up sweet rolls, and come back again. When the portal spawns, kill it. When the ad spawns, kill them. The rest of the time, get back to the boss. Again, I mentioned this a little while ago, it does look really chaotic, but you can make it very simple by just playing the mechanics. It can be more difficult if you make it more difficult. Also, if you can complete this from, let's say, 100% down to 70%, well, then you can take it from 70 to 0, because nothing really changes. He doesn't have any enrage mechanics, none of that stuff. So, now that he's dead, we go into the next room, and yes, there are more secrets to enjoy. There are 3 in total. They are all done fairly similar, so you just look for pads to stand on. Before that, of course, we do have a few ads to deal with. They are kind of clogging up the room, so pull these all together as per usual. If you're the tank, try to turn them away from the group, and as a DPS or a healer, just bear in mind, of course, if the tank hasn't pulled everything yet, you might end up with a couple of heavy attacks coming your way, so do make sure you dodge roll if that happens. Anything that needs interrupting, make sure you interrupt it. Now, that was a very small ad pool, nothing really dramatic there. But you're looking for 3 pads. There's one over there in the corner near the throne area, and there's also one upstairs and one downstairs. So the first one down here is just in the corner underneath the steps, and the other one is up top. We did get a little bit muddled up here because I was trying to tell people that there was one downstairs, and I was quickly trying to go upstairs to get mine. However, I didn't quite show them where it was, and they ran past it and accidentally upset some ads. So we did have to go downstairs and kill those. So just in case you do this as well, bear in mind that there are some ads downstairs. We do go to those later, but you can stand on the portal before you have to go down there and deal with those. So we get rid of these really quick. There's only a couple. They're nothing really stressful. Normally you would see them later. But the platform is actually right there, underneath the stairs. So all you need to do is have one person there, one person way up top, and one person in the middle. Once you activate all 3 of them, of course, just like the last one, you will have a portal that will appear, and everyone needs to go inside, and you'll be greeted with the new boss. So everyone needs to come upstairs and jump in there. Now, this new boss, again, you've probably seen these before. In fact, you have if you played the last fight, which you should have done, otherwise you wouldn't be here. And it has basically the same mechanics as every one of these types of enemies you've encountered before, but obviously it's a bit bigger. So you come into here, you press the pinion, and you've got a wave of ads. Much like the previous secret, quite straightforward. 3 ads at first, loads of spiders, and then a bigger wave after these are dead. Now, again, as per usual, with any ad pull, the tank should be turning these away from the group, and the group should stay behind the enemies, especially if you're using the backstabber passive. Next phase, exactly the same rules, except more of them. Bring everything in, pin it up, hold it still, and don't let anything run away. Turn it away from the group as much as you can, and again, just like normal spiders, they will need interrupting sometimes because they'll try to feed off of the dead bodies. Once they're down, here's the boss. Yes, it's a bloody spider Daedra. You've seen these before, you know what they do, don't stand in her face. She'll have spread and AoEs that you need to watch out for, and she has a nasty heavy attack as well. Also, if you are primaried by her, she does have a habit of snaring people, so just be really, really careful. And when she starts channeling lightning and such, you can't really do much to stop her from doing it, but you can, of course, step out of it. So watch your feet when this happens. You can either move, or you can simply block. She'll do it 2 times, so 2 people will get hit at once, not everyone, and all you have to do, again, is avoid or block it. Straightforward, but can hit quite hard if you're not careful. Now you've got a new buff, and this one's very nice. 10% increase to max health. And one more massive bonus, and this is one of the coolest secrets we have ever seen in the Elder Scrolls Online. If you block, you will actually make a flamethrower come out of your body. And every single time you block, the damage per tick will get stronger. This is just stupid. If you don't have any damage and you're one of those people that's scared of everything and you just hold block all the time, sure, you're going to run out of resources, but during that time, you're actually going to do damage. If you're the tank and you're perma-blocking, you're doing damage. If you block just in general, you're doing damage. All you have to do is block, and that thing can hit harder than Xan. It's very, very powerful. So while you've got your first buff giving you the extra stamina and magicka, improving your DPS and heals, or sets that scale off of those, and if you heal an ally, you get an orb around your body, up to 3 actually, doing damage for you. Now if you block, you get damage done for you as well. We've got 2 DPS bonuses right now, and both of them also give us a round number to flat stats. We've got 10% on everything. It's like the old school Warhorn, but permanently. It's very, very nice. Oh, of course, it does stack with Warhorn. Very handy indeed. But as you know, of course, this pull here, much like the one outside, you need to focus the big guy. Interrupt him when he channels, put everything else near him. Don't let things run away. Don't run around the room like a headless chicken just because you've got aggro. That's not how you lose aggro in the Elder Scrolls Online. Let the tank taunt it. Similar pull here. Hold everything in the middle as much as you can. Make sure as the tank you grab the big guy and of course the sword and board, and watch your feet because this pyromancer dude here can put some nasty fire damage on the ground. But as you can see, I mean, they're not going to last very long. Even with low damage, your flame abilities from your block now, and if you choose to help heal your group, giving you extra damage, it all adds up. It's very, very simple now. The ad pulls may have been a struggle for you before if you're a new group, but now you've just got so much weight behind you. It's a big, big difference. The secrets are amazing, and it's stupid not to get them, to be perfectly honest. That doesn't affect your achievements at all. Just make sure you do it quickly, if you want to get speedruns, of course. Now, again, there's 2 guys in here. You got to watch them. He has a different effect, though. He's starting to use some of the other ones now. He usually puts the cages on the ground that you got to watch out for, but he does cast some nasty magic-type damage across in front of him. much like the boss in Unhallowed Grave, the last one. Basically, they're mini versions of him, so just be very careful not to stand in his face. Now, this boss stresses most groups out because it's quite mobile. There's a lot of moving around. Yes, of course, there are ways to absolutely annihilate this and nuke it on the spot if you want to. But we're going to show you how the mechanics actually work. So it can be quite a long fight, but if you pace it, it's not the end of the world. It's not really a DPS race at all. You just have to make sure that you can survive and control stuff just in case your DPS is lower. Now, the major difference from regular vet to hard mode is that the boss will have a damage shield if the archer is in the room. So you have to make sure you control that. If you get rid of the archer, the damage shield will go away. If not, you're going to have to get inside it, otherwise it's not going to take a lot of damage at all. He gets really, really strong. But also, you need to watch out as the tank. Turn it away from the group at all times, and be aware of his kick. He will kick the tank, and even if you're blocking it, it'll knock you backwards, leaving you open for attack. It's kind of a knockback. Be careful. You can dodge roll it or block it. If you block it, you're open to the next hit if it's quick. If you dodge roll it, then, of course, you could just block like normal. So be very, very aware of that. Now, during the fight, he'll put negative AoEs on the ground that you have to stay out of, and above all, stay close. The fight is very mobile, deliberately forcing you to move around the room. When you do this, of course, he will then jump on the head of the furthest person away. It's a very old school mechanic in the Elder Scrolls Online. We've revisited it right here. It's very nasty. Now, the archer comes in the room at 80%. Now, she's obviously in the room right now, and you need to make sure you kill that archer. Now, you can't technically kill it. You will sit it down. But while it's in the room, you've got lots of AoEs on the ground. You've also got the bubble on the boss. Now, the easiest way to deal with this is to stack them together. That way, you're not at range, you're not getting any of those nasty jump mechanics, and of course, you can damage both of them at the same time. While the damage shield is on the boss, he takes much less damage than he normally would, so of course, you want to get this archer out of the way as soon as possible. Now, much like Asylum Sanctorum, when you sit this ad down, eventually the ad will get back up again. But, of course, it does help to get rid of, because then you can then do extra damage to the boss. As you can see now, no damage shield. Archer in the room, big damage shield. Archer out of the room, no damage shield. Simple. If you do get jumped on by the boss, make sure you dodge roll as soon as possible. If it lands on you, you're dead. If you dodge roll, you'll be fine. During the fight, the boss will, of course, charge at the tank, which is why you want to turn the boss away from the group at all times. That way you can always make him charge into the wall. Now, at 50%, you're going to get a second ad. As you can see here, we've got a two-hander. Yes, he ran straight to the other side of the room, and he does need interrupting. Bear in mind, it helps if the tank moves the boss to this guy, because then you can push them both down together. If someone goes over to that boss to interrupt it, the tank will have to struggle with the boss, because the boss is going to jump across the room and land on their head. So move together as a group, then no one gets jumped on. As you can see, the boss has got his damage shield back up. Why is that? Well, because the archer has just woken up again. She will wake up over and over and over throughout the fight every time you knock her down after a short period of time. All you need to do now is get rid of the archer. If you deal with her, then of course it's very easy to deal with the boss, because the damage shield is gone. So while most people say stack it in the shield and nuke it, what they really mean is get rid of the archer, because then the boss takes more damage. It's very, very straightforward. But obviously not everybody knows that, hence the point in the guide. You can leave the two-hander about in the room if you really want to, but it's just extra stress you have to deal with if you do that. You will have to keep interrupting him constantly. It can get really tricky. Be careful. So the fight is rinse repeat out from there onwards, really. So we're just going to recap over some of the major mechanics that you should pay attention to. So the boss is going to have a damage shield if the archer is alive. So if you get rid of the archer, you're fine. Just bear in mind the archer does have some nasty straight shots and also some nasty cone effects that you have to stay out of. When it comes to the two-hander, of course you want to get that as close to the boss as possible, because that's a lot easier to manage, but he does teleport from time to time, and you will have to interrupt his mechanics, otherwise he'll start stunning people. The boss will drop lightning effects on the ground all the time, and of course big spreading AoEs that you should avoid. And he does kick the tank with a frontal AoE attack as well, which will hurt other people if you stand there. Just bear in mind, of course, that will knock you backwards even if you block, so be careful because you're exposed to the next attack. Apart from that, watch the heavy attacks and stay out of his charge, or block it if you are the tank and he's aiming in your direction. If the DPS being aimed at, you're screwed, so be careful, don't get caught. Also, if you're too far away, you will get jumped on by the boss, so if you are the interrupting person, make sure, of course, you're paying full attention to the boss's feet, just in case he's coming for you. In the meantime, it is, like I said, rinse repeat, but at 30% health, he will wake up both of the ads. So while during the rest of the fight, of course, prior to this, you can, of course, ping-pong them or whack-a-mole them by killing one, getting onto the boss, killing the other, getting onto the boss, and just make them dead so you get a quieter room. When it comes to this phase, both will be in the room, and they both will consistently heal. Now, on non-hard mode, it's quite simple. You sit them down, then hit the boss. Or you can just go ham on the boss if you've got loads of damage. But in hard mode, doesn't matter, they'll just keep healing and healing and healing. And basically, what you need to do as DPS is get inside that bubble and hurt him. Outside the bubble, he's not going to take enough damage, if any at all. Inside the bubble, he's going to take normal stuff. But the tank now has to manage the aggro of the other enemies. It helps if a two-hander is in the group, obviously, because then it's very easy for the tank to hold on to them. But remember, he does teleport and he needs interrupts. And of course, the archer, just stay out of the shots. If it's aggroed by the tank, of course, the tank is going to take the light attacks. If it's not, other people are going to take more damage. The rest of the mechanics don't change. It's very, very simple. Find a spot to stand in, hit the boss, make sure you're controlling the two adds. Just rinse, repeat from here on. As you can see very clearly, the add is in the bubble and he's not taking any damage. Every time we hit him, he's just healing to full anyway. So this last phase is just you and him. Just again, as a tank, make sure that you do not drop them, because if they start heavy attacking the group, they're screwed. You don't want that to happen. Most people get execute panic here. Try not to. Everything you've seen already, you've already had to deal with. So nothing major is going to change. Just remember, of course, on regular vet, this doesn't happen. Regular vet, you can just kill them, and they're dead for good. Apart from that, nothing really to go into on this one. Everything that you've seen is everything that there's going to be. It's just you killing the boss now. And just be aware, of course, while the hard mode is slightly different to the regular, the major difference overall, apart from the bubble and everything, is the fact that they have a lot more health. So again, it's about endurance, especially on a mobile fight as well. It does put high pressure on the tank and the healers, but they want you to play a more active role rather than just standing there, hold and block and spam and healing springs. So it's done on purpose. But again, you don't have to do the hard modes, but if you do want to activate this hard mode, you must have done the previous hard mode before you come in here. Now, there's lots of different tactics, like I said, to approach that particular boss, but the one major one to understand is that the bubble is connected to the archer. If the archer is sitting down, there's no bubble. Now, we are out of the danger zone in there, and we're going down into the next part of the dungeon where we are going to find another secret, the final one, before we get to the final boss. Now, remember I tell you in most videos that Zos has a habit of giving you kind of breadcrumb mechanics where they teach you stuff that you will need to understand later. We've already seen the ads that you have to interrupt. Be very careful there. Don't fall down the hole. And you also just saw another mechanic in that last fight. So the boss itself was a major breadcrumb to the last boss. So what you have to pay attention to is the kick. The kick that the tank was receiving, which knocks them backwards while they're blocking, you are going to see that again. So the two things you have to note from here on out is the interrupts for those ads and the kick from the boss. If you didn't pay attention to those in the first place, now's the time to kind of recap on that stuff. So you might want to rewind the video and go back to it and see what I was saying. If not, I'm going to quickly go over it when we are actually in the fight. Now, the big ad pull in the middle of the room here obviously has to be dealt with before we stand on the platforms. They are all over the place. So you've got melee-based ads, you've got ranged ads, you've got a massive eye in the middle of the room. It's quite a tricky pull. You've also got a clan fear, which jumps on people's heads. Lots of stuns, lots of AoEs going on at once. So be very, very careful not to get caught, and don't scatter around the room too much. Bear in mind, again, if you are in trouble and you have to hold block, you do have a flamethrower at your disposal. Now, what the tank should really do is grab that eye and stick it on the big ads at the back on the stairs, but it's not always as simple as that. So just try and compose yourself a little bit. Don't panic and get rid of them in any way, shape, or form that you can without too much panic. Once they're all down, then, of course, there are 3 locations in the room. There is one at the beginning, which I showed you a moment ago, which I'm going to go stand on, and there's one either side of the room as well. Although we just found a chest, so obviously we have to get our loot on. Now, much like the last 2 secrets, 3 pads. Very simple. Look for the crystal, basically. If you can see a crystal, you know there's a pad next to it. So if you look over here, nothing, nothing, nothing. There's the pad, but there's a crystal just above it. And you'll see that light up when you stand on it. There's also one on the other side of the room as well. And once you're all standing on them, the portal will appear in the very center of the room. The boss is a familiar one for those of you that have done dungeons before. Done dungeons? Yeah, we'll stick with that. And it's basically a mini Lord Warden. Like a really tiny effort of a Lord Warden. Or Rakat if you've done VMOL. Although Lord Warden was technically first. The first part of the ad pulls is the same as the rest. Obviously different enemies, but you get the first wave of 3 enemies. Then you get a rather large ad pull. Again, don't forget we've got our buffs and bonuses with us, which do damage for us just healing the group or blocking. So this is quite easy. Grab the Twilights first, pull them into the middle of the room, turn them away from the group. Easy peasy. Next ad pull, of course, more stressful, much more ads. Bit of a challenge for the tank to pull them all in. But again, same enemies, quite easy. Watch the floor though, because there is a massive, massive fire AoE that drops multiple splats all over the place, and you don't want to be caught in those. Ads are straightforward. Damage is nasty. Here comes the tiny, tiny, tiny piss poor attempt at Lord Warden. He does have a machine gun mechanic, yes. So if you're familiar with that particular boss, you know what to do. If you don't know what to do, basically when he puts his hands in front of him and he's doing a rapid Hadouken, that is the machine gun mechanic. The way to alleviate any kind of stress or death in this situation is to make the tank physically stand in front of that machine gun and block. He will pick a random target, so of course if it's on you, don't run around the room, just stand behind the tank. Apart from that, he jumps, he punches, he has a heavy attack, and meteors. Don't stand in the meteors. You can block them, but it's risky, so just get out of the way. And now we've got our final buff. This bonus is mental. We get a 10% crit chance for all weapon and spell damage, and of course, if you heavy attack a target, it has a bomb attached to it for 5 seconds before it explodes. But if you heavy attack it yourself, once, twice, maybe 3 times, that's 3 stacks. If other people do it as well, there's more stacks. You can actually stack it up to 16 times, which is nuts. Obviously, I'll restart the timer every time you do a heavy attack to it to add and add and add to it. But now you've got area of effect burst damage alongside your flamethrower damage and alongside your kind of wisps spirit type damage. So even if you have low DPS, you've now got 3 abilities that stack up your flat stats and increase your damage in here. Makes things much, much simpler. And if you've got loads of damage, well, you're now OP as hell. It's very, very nice to have indeed. I would heavily recommend getting those secrets. They don't take very long. They're not stressful. Go do it. Of course, this pull is quite tricky. The eyeball is a ranged target, so he can be a bit of a pain in the ass sometimes, not going where you want him to go. The dude in the middle is obviously ranged as well, but he needs interrupting. Just be careful when pulling these and make sure they're turned away from the group as much as you possibly can. It's not the end of the world if you can't, but do make sure as a healer or a DPS, you're not in the face of the enemies. The tanks are going to have to maintain their resources as well, so be patient if they can't taunt everything at once. Next ad pull is relatively similar. Nearly went the wrong way. You've got some more of these breadcrumb mechanic ads where you have to interrupt them. Yes, there's the eyeball and the flame guys, but look on the far right hand side there and the far left, there's 2 in the room. If you can stack them both together by manipulating their range, there's a video about that on my channel, by the way. Look at the How to Get Good series. Then, of course, that will help. If not, then remember they must be interrupted. If not, they're going to channel loads of damage and people are going to die. You don't want it to happen, especially not on an ad pull. You want to start building ulti on this so you can use it on the last boss. Of course, you don't have to, but it helps. Especially if you're going for a bit of a burst, you want your big ultis for the start of the fight, so you can kind of get into the swing of it nice and early. Again, remember, don't stand in front of the eyeballs. If you played the game long enough, you know they stun from the front. Stay out of them. Tank should always turn stuff away. DPS should always stand behind it. That's the point in the backstabber passive in the first place. If you're using that, great, stand behind it. If you're using it and you're not standing behind it, you're doing it wrong. Now we have to go to the last boss. This is tricky if you panic. It's very simple if you don't. There are some set in stone mechanics here that do not really change that much. If you don't do hard mode, he's got a lot less health and he doesn't have the larger wall mechanic. It's a lot thinner, and also he doesn't have the bubble. But if you go hard mode, both of those do apply. You're now going to see all those things. So basically, he has the same mechanics as the last boss for the tank. He will actually kick the tank. When this happens, usually straight after, he'll hit with a nasty cleave type heavy attack, which really, really hurts. So be careful. Don't drop your block. If you get caught with a kick, you need to do something quite special to recover. So I would recommend dodging it if you can. At the beginning, of course, you saw him with a shadow. Obviously, make sure that you keep your heals up because he hits really, really hard. You've got 2 shadows there as well. Every time he does a cleave, he's going to have a special shadow that does one too. Just make sure he's turned away from the group. You should be fine. As you saw then as well, he teleported into a bubble on the other side of the room. That's when you must interrupt him. When he channels his sword into the ground, all these spikes will come out. So just do a nice little circle to keep away from them. If you get caught, you're dead. If you don't get caught, you're good. Now, when the adds come in, of course, they'll come in from the side. You do have to kill those. That frontal AoE you just saw with the ground-based abilities, that's from his kick. So the tank should turn that away at all times. Got some more adds in the room, and the simplest way to apply yourself in this fight is to kill the adds. Every single time you see an ad, go kill it. Forget the boss, go kill the ad. Swelling stuff on the ground, stay out of them. Simple as that, stay out of them. He'll heal if he stays inside of them. You'll take damage if you stay inside of them. Don't do it. Stay away. Here, hold him still, hit him in the back of the face, make sure the tank turns it away and blocks. Watch the kick, watch the cleave. The cleave will always come after the kick. Now the adds are in the room, these are the breadcrumb mechanics. Remember these? Interrupt them. But above all, when you've got this circle underneath one of the players, he is in a bubble on the other side of the room, he must be interrupted or the spike will come up underneath them and they will die. No interrupt, no survival. Simple as that. So from here on out, until the extra mechanics come in, kill the adds, hit the boss, kill the adds, hit the boss. If there's an ad in the room, kill it. If there isn't any ads in the room, hit the boss. Can't be any simpler than that. But the major mechanics to watch for, as far as the boss is concerned, while doing what you're doing, is avoid the big circles. After the boss kicks the tank, he's going to do a big cleave, so don't spin him. If the boss stabs his sword into the ground, everyone has to wiggle, otherwise you'll get a spike up your ass. And if he teleports like he does there, there's a bubble. Can't really hurt him, can't do anything from range. Get in there, interrupt him. Job done. That is basically it. Now, there will be some extra mechanics as we go through the fight, of course, but this is rinse, repeat from here. You need to kill the adds, you need to watch your feet, and you must, above all, always interrupt whenever he teleports. And lots of people try to hold him in the middle of the room, which is great, you can do that, but also what you have to consider is that wall that just came past us, we have to get in the gaps. This starts happening around this percentage of health, by the way. So you're looking around 60% or so. Randomly from each side, while you're dealing with the adds, these walls will come into play. If you hold the boss in the middle of the room, you've got plenty of time to get away from those walls. If you don't hold him in the middle of the room and you hold him in the corner, these walls are going to catch you, because they might spawn the same side that you're on and you end up dead. They don't hurt that much, but they do stun you, and if you're stunned during these mechanics, you're going to get killed pretty quickly. So, while you stick to the basic mechanics the fight had in the first place, you do now have that extra mechanic to deal with. Normally does about 4 or 5 walls, usually about 4 actually, and then it's gone for a minute or so, and then he does it again, and then it's gone for a minute, and so on and so forth. It's quite simple. Look at it, find a gap, don't get caught. But you have to be very, very careful, because obviously, as you can see there, resurrecting people in this particular scenario is really, really tricky. You've got the interrupts to deal with, you've got the walls to deal with, you've got lots of stuff on the ground. But as you can see, we've got a window there because why? The adds are dead. There's now only one ad that just spawned in the room. Everything else is the boss or nothing. Simple. Kill the adds, make it easy on yourself. Don't leave the room full of those stupid things that will get in your way. They will stun you, they will hurt you, they will do channeled effects, they do all manner of nastiness that you don't need to have to deal with. This is just us and the boss. If you understand these basics of moving around and interrupting when he teleports, while just plainly watching your feet for the rest of the mechanics, it's a bit of a dance. It's quite a straightforward fight. It does look very messy, it does look very chaotic, but split the mechanics up individually and that's all you're really dealing with. And once he gets to around 40%, you'll see this mechanic, where he starts swinging his sword around his head. Much like Fang Lair, obviously the lower the health, the more stacking mechanics happen. You still have all the previous ones, but now you've got extras. Well, look at all the spinning stuff on the ground. Don't step in it. Once they're gone, you have a clear room again. Again, however, if there are any adds, make sure you kill them. And that's pretty much it. Nothing from here on out is going to be any different. You've actually seen all the mechanics now. So, frontal cleave after the kick, be careful. Walls coming in from the side, find a gap. Spikes coming up from underneath you, go around in a little circle and just drop your 4 AoE so you don't get caught. And if he teleports, make sure you interrupt him. There is one more mechanic he does have if you're too far away from him with aggro, and that is that he'll charge at people. But obviously, if you do see him doing that, just get out of it. In the meantime, what have I said already? Make sure you kill the adds first. Even if you think you're OP as hell, kill the adds first. Otherwise, it's extra stress. You can stack the boss on the adds if you like, or stack the adds on the boss, whichever order. But just be aware, he is going to teleport anyway, so putting him in one position is not going to last for very long. So take advantage of that as and when you can. But essentially, the adds are the main source of the fight. Lots of people get confused when it comes to dramatic fights like this and assume that all the fight is the boss. It's actually not. You can take as long as you like with this. There's actually no DPS check. The only DPS check to really deal with is the fact that you need to kill the adds. But they spawn so far apart that once they're gone, you don't really have to do anything for a long period of time. About 90% of this fight is actually just watching your feet. So if you hump a dummy all day long, great, you might have loads of damage, but get in here and practice, because if you don't know how to move your feet, that damage is useless. And since there are no DPS checks in here, it doesn't really matter how hard you hit, as long as you're not dead. So again, just to recap, kick, then cleave, watch out for the charge if he does it. When he teleports, interrupt. When there's big AoEs on the ground, make sure you stay out of them, and watch the walls. Apart from that, kill the adds above the boss. Adds first, boss second. Anyway, hopefully that helps. Hopefully that wasn't too stressful to watch. It is a little bit chaotic. And hopefully you learned something from this video. If you're not doing the hard mode, obviously the mechanics are very, very similar. They're just nowhere near as stressful, and he has a lot less health. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hugely appreciate the support. If you are not subscribing already, please do hit that button. It is free. Furthermore, if you want to help support outside the channel, there are some links in the info section for Patreon, Twitter, Facebook, the website xynodegaming.com, Instagram, and loads of other stuff. It's all there in the description, and hopefully we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.